This is my house. Get out." That's what my brother-in-law hollered at my father inside the $425,000 seaside property I had bought outright for my parents' 50th anniversary. My mother stood frozen by the sink, her face drained of all color, tears soaking the dish towel she clutched like she was begging for a truce. My father stared at the floorboards, shoulders shaking, his voice swallowed whole. My sister's laugh rang out sharp and satisfied, like she'd been waiting her whole life to watch something break. I stood there in the doorway, cake box still dangling from one hand, the house keys cold against my palm. I didn't shout. I didn't step forward. I just smiled once, a small cold curve, and said a single line that drained every bit of laughter from the room. They thought they had taken everything that mattered. They didn't know what I'd kept hidden. 2 weeks earlier, none of this existed. The world felt lighter then. I remember unlocking the front door for the first time, the sea breeze drifting in, carrying a faint scent of salt and new paint. I had spent months hunting for a place like this, modest, quiet, sunlit, a house that breathed calm, a home where mornings could start slow and evenings could end soft. When I asked my parents to take a Saturday drive with me, my mother thought we were going out to dinner. My father packed his fishing gear. Neither suspected anything. They both cried before they even stepped in. Dad ran his fingers along the railing as though it were something holy. Mom opened every drawer, every cabinet, whispering, "It smells like lemon in here." I had saved for years, wired the final payment after pulling one of the longest nights of my career, the numbers blurring on the screen until the code might as well have been static. I wanted them to have one thing in their lives that wasn't temporary, wasn't borrowed, wasn't in danger of being taken away. Growing up, scarcity was our weather. Overdue rent notices on a counter, Dad taking overtime until his hands shook, Mom crying quietly in the bathroom so we wouldn't hear. I learned early how to solve emergencies with a smile and tape. I learned how to fix things I had no business fixing. And later, with Olivia drowning in bills every other month, I paid them without being asked. Quick transfers, late-night calls, covering her screw-ups like it was my personal calling. I told myself it was loyalty. It wasn't. It was a habit carved out of childhood. So handing my parents the keys that day felt like setting down a burden I'd been carrying since I was 10. Dad tried to say my name and couldn't. Mom kept crying and laughing in the same breath. We sat on the deck together as the sky blended into pink and gold. I watched them relax for the first time in what felt like decades. Before I left, I slid a small note into the kitchen drawer. One handwritten line meant for the quiet mornings, the warm afternoons, the kind of days they never used to get. Then I drove back to the city thinking, truly believing, I'd finally given them something untouched by chaos. But peace is fragile, and in our family, it never lasts. 3 days later, Olivia called my mother. By day 5, I got a photo on my phone, that same deck, but with a different caption. Home sweet home. Her account, her grin, her kids sprawled in my chair. I should have recognized it then. The silence wasn't gratitude. It was scheming. When I pulled into the driveway that Saturday, the first thing I saw was an SUV parked diagonally across the lawn like someone who didn't care about rules or the grass beneath their tires. A cartoon blasted from inside the house loud enough to rattle the windows. The front door hung open, curtains blowing like a warning. Something clenched inside my chest before I even stepped out of the car. Mom was in the kitchen, shoulders shaking, clutching a towel like it could keep her upright. Her eyes were swollen. Dad sat stiff in a chair by the window, fingers trembling against the armrest. The smell of fried food, beer, and cheap air freshener filled the space. Boxes piled everywhere. None of our parents. Then a man's voice carried from the living room. "Kids want the room upstairs with the ocean view." He said it like he was giving orders in his own home. When I rounded the corner, I saw Mark, barefoot, holding a beer bottle, standing in front of my father with the confidence of someone who thought he owned the deed. Olivia lounged on the couch scrolling her phone, one flip-flop dangling off her foot. Mom whispered my name, like it was a warning wrapped inside a prayer. Mark didn't even acknowledge me at first. "It's a family property, right?" he said, lifting the bottle toward my father. "We're just settling in." Olivia smirked. "Relax, Bella, you know Dad can't handle stairs anymore. We'll take care of things here." The words family property hit me like a blade. I turned to my mother. "You told them?" She shook her head frantically, tears filling the cracks in her eyes. "They saw the photo your father posted. I tried to stop them." I looked at my dad. He couldn't look back. "He said it was okay," he mumbled, voice small. My sister's kids raced through the hallway, leaving trails of sand across the new floors. Mark raised his voice above the cartoon. "Peak season's coming. We can rent this place out easy. I already made a listing. Gotta make the house pay for itself." I stared at him. "You did what?" He shrugged like it was obvious. "Don't be weird, Bella. It's family money. Family house." Mom tried to speak, but her voice felt like it would break if it got louder. "They just need a few days." A few days? The phrase that had ruined more years of our lives than anything else. I wanted to shout, to throw them out, to remind them that every stone in this house was bought with my work, my exhaustion, my sacrifice. But instead, I placed the cake on the counter. "I'll be back tomorrow," I said. Olivia rolled her eyes. "You're always dramatic." Mark raised his beer. "Bring more cider when you come back. It's good." Outside, the ocean shimmered so bright it made my eyes ache. I got into my car and gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. They thought I was leaving to cool off. They didn't know I was going home to plan their removal, quietly, legally, permanently. I parked 2 blocks away and walked back, staying under the shade of palm trees. Rage makes people sloppy. Precision makes them unstoppable. My hands were steady as I opened my phone and pulled up the folders I had prepared months ago, just in case. Every payment, every clause, every screenshot. The trust documents my attorney drafted, each one a small weapon placed carefully on a shelf. Back at my desk, I spread everything out like a map before a battle. The trust gave my parents exclusive occupancy, no one else. The listing Olivia or Mark posted used my photos, my words. The payout was routed to Mark's account. Then the group chat screenshot I'd been sent, where someone typed, "We'll get him to agree if Mom cries." My stomach twisted, but my hands didn't shake. I highlighted, printed, tagged, filed. I called the HOA. The woman sounded bored until I read the rental clause aloud. No short-term rentals, 0 exceptions. She went quiet, then firm. Yes, they could enforce. Yes, fines could be issued. Yes, the listing violated the rule. She emailed me confirmation within minutes, another piece of proof. I booked a locksmith for the next morning, left detailed instructions, reprogram keypad, replace outer lock, and be early. Then I emailed the rental platform's trust and safety team with attachments, deed, trust, evidence, screenshots. Finally, I wrote one brief message to the neighbor mailing list. "Unauthorized activity at 24C view. I am the trustee and will be correcting it. Send." I barely slept, my brain running every scenario. If they refused to leave, if they staged a scene, if Olivia tried to twist the story online. I pictured their faces when their leverage dissolved. A small, private justice. At sunrise, I drove back to the house, a manila folder resting on my lap. Inside were 5 documents in crisp order: deed, trust, listing screenshot, chat log, HOA clause. They were the sharpest tools I ever carried. The house looked peaceful from the outside, almost like it didn't know what was coming. Inside, chaos ran wild. Cartoons blaring, kids screaming, beer cans clinking. Mark lifted a lazy hand at me like I was an Uber driver he wasn't tipping. Olivia's laugh cut through the noise. My mother's face collapsed when our eyes met. I didn't raise my voice. I set the folder on the coffee table, arranged the pages like instruments, each one purposeful. "Everyone in the living room," I said. Not loud, not angry, just final. The room stilled. Even the dog stopped moving. Mark's grin wobbled. "This is my house. Get out." His voice echoed as I stood by the mantel, the folder resting against my palms. My father's shoulders slumped. My mother's face was wet and small. Olivia smirked from the couch, legs crossed, phone in hand. I laid the first page on the coffee table. "Deed," I said, tapping the header. "Recorded last week. Property owned by the trust I established. Lifetime beneficiaries, Sam and Ruth. They have exclusive occupancy." Mark scoffed. "Big words. It's family property." "Wrong," I said evenly. "It's theirs, not yours, not mine. Theirs." I set the second document beside it. Trust instrument. I'm trustee. My legal duty is to remove anyone who interferes with their peace. Olivia's voice turned sweet. "We're helping. Dad can't handle stairs. We're just settling in." I cut in. I dropped the next page. A printed screenshot. Your listing. Entire home, oceanfront, booked weekends through August. Payout to Mark's account. Mom gasped. My father closed his eyes. Mark's jaw tightened. "You're not here half the time. It's only fair." "This isn't fairness," I said. "It's theft dressed as family." Olivia's tone sharpened. "Don't be dramatic." I flipped the next page. Text messages filled the sheet. Her line in gray. "We'll get her to cave if Mom cries." Mark's response. "Peak season, baby. Free money." Silence cracked open the room. Mom stared at the paper like it might explode. I placed the final page. HOA rules. No short-term rentals. Violation already reported. The TV cartoon went mute. Even the air stopped moving. Mark leaned closer. Beer in hand. "Or what? You'll call the cops on your own family?" "Or I'll fulfill my duty as trustee," I said. I set my phone on the table, screen up. Here's the drafted email to the HOA board. Here's one to the county recorder. Another to the rental platform, listing link attached. And this, I pointed to the open text thread, is Victor the locksmith, parked outside. A car bore shut outside, crisp and calm. Olivia paled. "You wouldn't dare." Mom looked at me trembling. "Bella, do what you need to do." Permission. After years of excuses, she'd finally given it. Mark straightened, puffed his chest. "You think paper scares me?" "No," I said. "Reality does." He lunged to grab the documents. I moved them aside without breaking eye contact. "Don't touch my work," he sneered. "Your work is money. My work is protecting them." Olivia's voice cracked. "You're humiliating us." "You did that when you posted Home Sweet Home from someone else's kitchen." I took a slow breath. "Here's what happens next. You'll pack your things, delete the listing, refund every booking, apologize, and leave your keys here." Olivia laughed too high. "Or what? You'll throw us out? Or Victor changes the locks in 5 minutes, and you can film your tantrum in the driveway." The doorbell rang. 3 cheerful chimes. The dog barked. "That's him," I said. Victor turned toward the sound. "Don't touch that lock." Victor stepped inside, tool bag on his shoulder. "Afternoon, you must be Bella." I nodded and handed him a paper. Authorization letter. Trustee signature. He read it, smiled politely, and went to work. Mark pointed at my father. "Old man, tell her to stop." Dad's voice cracked, but it held. "This is our house. We're staying." Mom's hand slid into his. For once, she didn't apologize for it. Mark sputtered. "You'll regret this, Bella." "I regret enabling you for a decade," I said. "This is correction, not cruelty." Olivia's kids had stopped moving, wide-eyed and still. Even the dog sat down. "Keys," I said, holding out my hand. Mark slapped his on the table. Olivia tossed hers after a pause. Victor's drill. Word. Clean and final. A few clicks later, he appeared with the new keypad. "Code's ready. Who gets it?" I looked at Dad. "You pick." He whispered 4 numbers, his wedding month and year.
Victor entered them, nodded politely, and handed me the instruction strip. I placed it in a folder labeled Happy Things on the entry table. Olivia watched, lips trembling. You could have just talked to me. I have been. You just mistook silence for permission. Mark crossed his arms. We'll see you in court.
You won't, I said, because I'll see you first. He glared. You think you're clever? No, I said. Just prepared. Outside, Victor packed up his tools. All done, he said softly. Old keys won't work anymore. Thank you, I replied. Mom sank into a chair, shaking. I didn't want to choose sides, she whispered. You didn't, I said. You stopped pretending there weren't any. She nodded slowly. My father's hand rested on hers, steady now. The air changed. The cartoon flicked off. Wind whispered through the open deck door. For the first time since I'd walked in, the house exhaled. Mark and Olivia carried boxes down the stairs, muttering threats about lawyers and loyalty. On the porch, Olivia paused, eyes glossy. You think this ends here? No, I said. It ends when you stop taking what was never yours. She blinked, turned, and walked toward the SUV. The dog jumped in after the kids. Mark slammed the door and peeled out tires, scraping gravel. When the sound faded, the house seemed to settle into its bones again. The ocean breathed. The windows sang softly in the wind, like they were remembering what calm sounded like. Mom poured tea, her hands trembling less now. I didn't want you to see this side of her, she said. I needed to, I answered. Boundaries don't exist until someone crosses them. Dad looked at me over his cup. I should have said something sooner. You did, I said. You called me. That was enough. I opened my laptop, forwarded the HOA confirmation, and canceled the illegal bookings myself. Everyone with a short note. Listing removed by owner. Refund issued. I typed a neighbor letter. You may have seen extra cars. Confusion resolved. No rentals moving forward. When I finished, I felt lighter. Not triumphant, just clean. Mom sliced the cake. I'd brought the one that had waited through the entire confrontation. She laughed once at the absurdity of it, then handed me a plate. We ate quietly. The icing was lemon and sugar, sharp and sweet. My phone buzzed, a notification from the platform confirming the listing's removal, followed by one from the HOA acknowledging compliance. The last message was from Olivia. You made Mom cry. I deleted it without opening. Dad looked out the window at the water, his profile soft against the glass. It's finally quiet, he said. I nodded. That's how love should sound. He smiled faintly. We'll get used to that. As the sky dimmed to a deep gold, I slipped the documents back into the folder labeled Boring Armor, because boring, I'd learned, is the opposite of chaos. And that's how peace stays. Outside, the waves rolled in steady and slow. Inside, my parents breathed in sync with them, safe in the home I'd built, guarded by boundaries that finally held. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the windows, quiet and steady. The house smelled like toast and ocean salt. My father sat on the deck with his coffee, legs crossed, reading the paper he hadn't touched in years. My mother hummed softly while watering the plants I'd brought the day before. For the first time in a long time, peace didn't feel fragile. It felt earned. Online, the storm came and went. Olivia's posts about betrayal and greedy siblings lost traction. The HOA banned her account. The HOA issued her a warning letter. When she texted a demand for emotional damages, I didn't reply. Weeks passed. Mom sent me a photo of her feet on the deck rail, pink toenails glinting in the sun. Dad called to say he'd finally slept through the night. That was all I needed. One evening, my niece Mia messaged me, "Grandma looks happy there." I typed back, "Come visit with her permission. No bookings, just pancakes." Sometimes victory isn't loud. It's the quiet after the storm. The sound of locks clicking, of love staying exactly where it belongs. A month later, I drove back to the coast. The house glowed in the evening light, calm and alive again. Through the window, I saw my father reading, glasses sliding down his nose. My mother sat beside him, a puzzle spread across the table, her laughter mixing with the ocean breeze. I didn't go in. I just stood there, listening to the sound of peace I'd fought for. Here's what I know now. Love isn't covering chaos with kindness. It isn't letting people steal under the excuse of family. Love is a house with working locks, paperwork that holds, and parents who can breathe easy. If you've ever had to protect someone you love from their own family, tell me in the comments. And if this story hits somewhere deep, hit subscribe. There are more stories like this of betrayal, boundaries, and the quiet revenge that finally sets you free.